interview of Facts and Rumours. Today we have a special guest, Peter Spaltman. Peter is a Dutch knife maker. Peter, welcome to the interview of Facts and Rumours. Glad you're here.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Peter makes a variety of different styles of fixed blades, even straight razors. Peter, you are making knives for how long now?
I have been doing this for 3.5 years now, and start of it actually went a little further back. About 6 or 7 years ago, I went smithing with my family for a day, and we made some knives there, which we later at home we finished them off. So that's what really got me started, and slowly the urge to do that more often just kept creeping in, and eventually I would turn my shed into a knife making shop, and that's when it all started, and I actually started to produce more knives.
Okay, nice, awesome. So it started with a day out with your family and...
Yeah, just
okay.
my father and my 2 brothers.
Yeah, nice.
We just went to a local blacksmith and we just hammered out some knives.
Yeah, awesome. And how did you get your knowledge about moving metal, steel? What is your background?
Well, that's actually 2 parts. The first part is obviously these days YouTube, because any knowledge you will need you can find on YouTube. And the second part was a bit more tricky. The second part is what steels do you use, what steels are available to you. So I did some internet research for about 6-7 months, just figuring out how the steels are called, because all the YouTube names you hear is pretty much the American names, but there are 3 types in which steels are given. So I pretty much figured out what type of composition would give you certain specifications for a knife.
Yeah.
And that's what I thought was a really important part before I would actually make something I would consider worth selling.
Yeah. So you immediately started forging?
No, I actually started as a stock removal.
Okay.
And that was mostly being done I live in a very densely populated area. And at first I thought that it would be impossible to set up a forge and not being worried about my neighbors complaining about the noise. It was only later that I found that there are actually several tricks that you can use to dampen the noise that comes from your shop, and that's when I slowly started getting into forging.
So it started with stock removal, but now you are forging. I think mainly forging or also still stock removal?
That depends. Obviously I like forging more, but I like making knives especially to meet a certain set of needs for a person.
Yeah.
So whenever I get an order for stock removal, I will do that, no problem.
Yeah, but there is a price difference, of course.
As with all custom knives, there's a price difference to anything you want. The steel you use, the handle materials can really count up, and of course the amount of finishing work and different shapes that will all equate into a certain price range. Yes.
Yeah. So you make as I already told in the introduction, you make a wide variety of different styles. Can you tell something about those different styles and why you make them?
Yeah, sure. So this is one of the earlier knives I made using the stock removal method, and I actually made this one for my brother. And this is a piece of stainless steel Sunmai Damascus with an ebony handle, and my brother specifically wanted a simple but effective sheath which also had room for a fire steel.
Yep.
So
it's for camping or bushcrafting?
Yes, it's a bushcrafting, camping, fishing, vacation type of knife.
Yeah.
So that's one part of it.
And you also make the leather work?
Yeah, I also do the leather work. This is one of the first sheaths I ever made. So I still think it isn't as good as it should be. But that's just me being picky. So I've been told.
It is good looking, in fact. Nice touch with the fire steel, so it's also kind of a survival.
Yeah, it was made to be a very multi-purpose style knife.
Very nice. And you see the layers of steel.
Yes, you can actually see the sunlight core sticking out from the Damascus steel cladding.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so that was the first knife. Next we have a little forged knife here, which has a mirror polish and some olive wood scales. And this one I personally like myself, especially because it has a very high heel and a very narrow tip. So that will allow for a lot of clean vegetable cuts, and you can really align the edge perfectly with this knife. It's small, it's nimble, and it has a forged look, just the top of it. That's personally what I like most.
Okay.
That really tells that this was done by hand.
Yeah.
If you have a perfectly clean blade, you would have to know that it was handmade.
Yeah.
So over my years, I've come to appreciate the flaws in a blade, because that will show you that it is handmade. The next blade I have here, that is a small kitchen knife, which has a polished bevel. Just get it set up here. There we go. What I like about this knife is that it's perfect for vegetables. When you look at a paring knife, which is small and it really allows for good control, this knife will help you do that, but it has a high heel. And the high heel will allow for clearance, and it just gives me a more comfortable feeling while cutting. So the next blade I have here is a small kitchen knife. And this one has a K-tip, just because I like it. What's fun about this knife is that it has a very high heel. So that will allow for a lot of clearance for your fingers when you're chopping up small vegetables. And also, being small, it will really allow you to have a very excellent blade control for fine cuts like onions, etc. So this one is 15 CRV free steel, which I forged. You can see the forged look up there. And I have put some olive wood scales on it. So this one I like myself personally. This is not something that anyone has asked me to make ever. This is just something that I thought would fit my needs in the kitchen. That's why I made this one.
It's very thin, I think.
Well, it's actually not that thin. If you look at the spine up here, it's actually around 4 mil thick at the spine. But because at the spine it has a very high heel, it still has a very narrow blade profile. And as you come further along the spine, it has a tapered spine. So right here, near the top of it, the spine will actually only be about 2 millimeters thick.
Yeah.
So
I like thinner knives for the kitchen.
Yes, thin knives are great for kitchens. So I like to make my kitchen knives as a tapered tang, so they will feel more nimble, and you just have a better control and feel of what you are doing.
Yeah. And you mentioned the X15CR steel.
Yes.
Is that comparable with the Scandinavian steel, I think?
No, it's not comparable to Sandvik steel.
Okay.
Sandvik is mostly stainless. But the thing is, when I was researching steels, I had this huge book to look from, and as I was learning more about what composite in steels give certain properties, that I found this one steel that just stood out as I thought those properties that would make a good kitchen knife. So I bought that steel, and it was only later that I found that that steel is actually being used for some bigger kitchen knife companies. Okay. That was pretty funny in my idea.
So a little bit softer in hardening, probably, in tempering?
No. It's hard as
Hard.
nails. It's very
Okay,
hard.
Okay. You see this
It has-
difference between German-made knives and Japanese-made knives.
Yeah, no,
Japanese-made
this is
knives.
definitely on the Japanese side. This is a
Okay.
workable hardness of 63 to 65
Okay.
HRC.
That's very hard.
So the people that have used knives with this steel actually told me that as long as they maintain it, they don't need to sharpen it at all.
Okay, nice.
Because it's just
Yeah,
that hard.
nice.
So
And the olive wood, I think the olive wood is a nice touch.
yes, I love the flowing, smooth
Yeah.
characteristics of olive
Yeah,
wood,
yeah.
especially when you get a piece with some high contrast in it.
And it colors very beautiful over time.
Yes, true.
It
Although
gets this warm glow, shine.
that's true, but you have to oil it every now and then, maybe once a year, to just prevent it from getting those gray touches.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah,
personally,
otherwise-
I'm not a fan of the gray
Yeah.
touches.
Yeah.
I like the rich brown tones.
Yeah.
So that's that one. The next one I have here is something that I made to be a prize knife. Earlier this year, I was being contacted to make a prize for a cooking contest. And obviously, due to Corona, that contest never got around. So maybe I will enter this knife into next year's competition. For this knife, I used 1095 steel, and I made a differential hardening, which some better know as a hamon. I wouldn't go as far as to calling it a hamon, because that's a different polishing method, but it is differentially hardened, and you can tell that because I've etched it. This also has some nice ebony handle scales with white and red spacers. I've used a mosaic pin, and the fun thing about this knife, which you don't see in a lot of kitchen knives these days, is that it actually has some nice spine work. This is a thorn design, and I think that really complements this knife. This one is very, very thin, and this is just an excellent overall cutting chef's knife.
So for common tasks like vegetables, but also meat, that kind of stuff.
Yes,
Herbs.
just a main purpose
Yeah.
hybrid between a German and a French chef's knife.
Yeah.
And I've made it very, very light at the tip so that you can really, really use this all day and don't get tired by the knife.
And how should people maintain such a knife when they use it in the kitchen?
Well, obviously, you can't use a dishwasher to clean a custom knife. It doesn't matter whether it's stainless or high carbon steel, you should never, ever put a custom knife in a dishwasher. That's, for most people, that's common knowledge. I just wanted to emphasize that. Furthermore, every time that you clean it, you need to have a dry space that you put it away, and you have to oil it quite regularly just to keep it in the best shape possible. There are very many controversies as to what oil you should use. Many people say olive oil will not work because it is possible that the olive oil goes bad. I think for in a home kitchen that's not an issue.
You use it daily.
If you use it daily, that won't be an issue. If you put it away for a year or two, that might be a different thing. So I like to use mineral oil.
It's something that bothers me. Just a side talk. People use ceramic cutting boards or glass cutting boards, or you should always use a wooden cutting board.
Yeah, but that's
You destroy your
indeed
knife.
that's indeed a completely different topic.
Yeah.
Yes, it
But-
doesn't have to do with maintenance. I think that has to do with common sense.
Yeah.
I mean, glass being a liquid, it doesn't act as a liquid, and any time that you use a knife against a very hard object, the knife edge will be prone to bend or chip or whatever. So you should always use a soft board.
Yeah.
So I don't care if you use a soft plastic board or a wooden board. Most chefs like a end grain cutting board, which has the grain of the wood faced up in small blocks to create a cutting block. But that's all personal preference.
Yeah.
You should just never use a knife on a particularly hard surface.
Yeah, exactly.
especially kitchen knives.
Yeah.
Because if you take a survival knife and you look at the edge geometry of that, it will have a fairly high edge, which means that there's more material backing the edge, so it can withstand the occasional blow.
Yeah.
A kitchen knife is meant to glide through soft materials as easily as possible. So that's not an edge that you would hit into an object hard without it being damaged.
Yeah.
The next knife I brought to you today is this one. And
Buoy.
yes, it is actually shaped like a buoy. I call this the barbecue buoy.
Okay.
But it doesn't actually qualify as a buoy. This is a barbecue style knife. A friend of mine came to me once and he had a picture of a knife that he would like me to make. And he said, I don't know what the steel is. So he showed me the picture and I immediately said, that is a various rasp. He said, can you do that? Of course I can do that. So I contacted the local farrier and surely he was happy enough to grant me with some old discarded files of his. And I started to make these. As I found that there are many barbecue enthusiasts, especially here in the Netherlands. And there is actually a pretty high demand for this little piece of customized equipment that goes with a barbecue. So this is actually very thick steel. It has a very pronounced detailing. It has a triangular detailing on one end, where it has a common file detail on the other end. That's common for most various rasps. This one just has a G10 handle on it, and this is just something that I wanted to show you.
Nice.
So you don't really want to use this in a kitchen, as it's not intended for vegetables.
Yeah.
It's just for slicing medium, dense meat
Yeah.
and that sort of stuff. Yes.
Yeah. And maybe spare ribs.
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
Ribs
Oh, nice.
and that sort of stuff. So being that this is not a known steel to me, it actually took me a few tries to get the hardness of the steel to where I wanted it to be. But now that I do know how it heat treats, I have a solid supply of the same various rasps, and that's what really allows me to make this as a pretty high quality knife.
In a consistent way.
In a consistent way, because I keep using the same brand and even the same type of file within the same brand.
Yeah, probably around 58, the hardness?
The
57?
hardness will be between 57, 58. Yes.
It's most common for good quality rasps.
Yeah. So I do the heat treat on this myself. I don't use the heat treat that it came with. I anneal all the files first, and then I give them my own heat treat.
Okay, nice. So you have all this equipment in your shop?
Yes, I just put these in the forge, and when they're glowing hot, I'll just make sure that the heat distributes evenly, and then I keep them in a bucket full of vermiculite, and I will let them cool very slowly. I will jam them together to generate more heat in the area, so it really cools down slowly, and that will do a very nice job at annealing all the files before I work on them. Okay. Now the next knife I have is actually one that I made when I just started forging, and this is a buoy, contrary to the one that you just saw that. But it's not a traditional buoy. This one has a harpoon tip. The harpoon tip means that it will just curve up before it has a straight profile down. That's called a harpoon tip, rather than the buoy clip point that you so often see in the traditional designs. This knife is actually a very strange project. There's a Dutch man that makes handled materials, custom handled materials. And when I was talking to him...
Are there bugs in?
Yes, those are actually...
those are bugs.
2 bugs and a bird skull in there, in the stabilized wood.
Okay.
And...
That's awesome.
Yes. So the guy that makes these handle materials, his name is Blockbuster D on Instagram, and he actually sent this to me, and he just said, you know what, I'm going to send you this, and I would like you to make a knife around this handle. So rather than making the knife and picking the handle to it, I actually designed this knife to fit this handle.
Yeah, okay.
So this is kind of like reverse engineered.
Yeah.
I saw this block and I just thought, okay, what would fit this handle? And that's the knife shape that got out of that. So if you,
And this is a composite from resin and wood?
yes,
Or-
it's called a hybrid block, and this is a burl wood which has been stabilized, and it has later been cast with a resin, with the bird skull and the bugs being set there in place with some super glue,
Okay, nice.
and it just came to me as a block.
Nice. And how is this guy called? His
Blockbuster D.
name? Blockbuster. I never heard of it. I'm sorry.
No, that's fine.
Blockbuster D.
He's a chef that does this on his spare hours.
Okay, nice.
So he's not very well known, but I came across him and we started conversation, and that's just how it came to be.
Yeah, nice.
So that's the fun thing about this knife, and I have also made the leather work for this, which is quite a lot more time than some people will actually know. This leather is completely tooled, everything from the coloring to setting in all the figures. I have this feather here, I got the bird skull, I got the bug on top on the belt clip, and even the D-shaped buckle
Yeah.
I forged myself.
Okay.
So that's all really fun.
Nice
It's
touch.
very, very time consuming,
Yeah.
but I think it's well worth the effort.
Yeah. And the guard. What kind of material?
Oh yeah, of course. The guard is brass.
Okay.
I
nice.
just ordered a piece of brass and actually forged this into shape, which
Yeah.
took me a couple of times because brass behaves very differently when it's being forged to steel. So the first bit of brass I actually melted, and I found that in the bottom of my forge as a puddle.
Okay.
So I had to redo that a couple of times.
Much lower temperatures.
Yes, much lower temperatures, and it work hardens, and you can anneal it by cooling it down, which is the exact opposite of what a steel will do.
Yeah.
It will be soft when you heat it up, and it will harden when you cool it.
Yeah.
So and that's actually the copper in the brass that does that.
Okay.
That's very specific to any copper alloy, is that it will work harden, and you can anneal it by quenching it.
Yeah.
So if you don't know that, that's something to keep in mind.
Nice.
Now, the last knife I brought to you is one of my most recent projects, and it's this kitchen knife. This kitchen knife I made for my sister-in-law, and this is a forged 1095, and what's fun about this knife is that she actually requested it to be as texturized as possible and to have the texture run down as much as possible. So that's, from a forging standpoint, this is a very technically hard thing to do. So the handle on this knife is made out of a spalted maple burl and some lovely Honduran rosewood burl, and the shape of this handle is actually very complex. So I had to do some dry runs just to work with the different angles and to get everything to where I wanted it before I had to work on this exquisite piece of wood.
From my point of view, it almost looks like facets.
Yes, it is faceted. It has rounds, it has hollows, it has
Flats.
angles, it has flats. That's what makes this a very, very hard handle to pull off. But I love the style of it. It has a hourglass shape in the middle of it, and this allows for various grips. If you just use it in a regular grip, let me just show you like this. If you use it in a regular grip, that will be very comfortable. But you can also very easily use this in a pinch grip. So if you were to use any small vegetables, you can actually creep up one finger, you can pinch grip the knife, and you will actually have more control over the blade. And that's what makes this handle even more interesting, in my opinion.
Okay.
So this is pretty much where I would go for my personal style.
Okay.
I like fluid, I like the highly textured blades, I like the handmade look of it, I like the very intricate handle of it, I love the quality and the intensity of the woods.
It is very nice. It is a beautiful knife. So I think your sister-in-law was happy with it when you finished it?
Yeah, well, not so much when I had to take it home again because I had this interview.
Okay. And I hope you did also make such a knife for your wife. I don't know if she's jealous on her sister, but...
No. My wife has been thinking about having a blade made by me, but she still hasn't decided what her ideal knife is.
Yeah.
As long as she hasn't figured that out for herself, I'm not going to make her one.
Yeah.
Obviously, when she does,
Yeah.
I will be happy to make her one.
Yeah. Okay, nice. And we have one left.
Yes.
It's not a kitchen knife, I think.
No.
It's not a potato peeler.
It's not a kitchen knife, it's not a bushcrafting knife, it's not a hunting knife. This is a straight razor, as many of you will know. And this is made from the same materials as this hunting knife, which is a Senmai stainless steel blade. And I've always wanted to do a straight razor. You can't really tell, but I use a straight razor to work the edges, and I just love the amount of personal attention you have to give yourself in order to make your own lever, and just take the time to shave rather than just pulling some industrial made razor over your face and be done with it. So I really wanted to get into folding knives, perhaps even one day. So I started with this. I started with the straight razor design, and I had some lovely woods lying around. I had this piece left over from a previous build, and I just started making one.
Yeah. And straight razors, of course, have to be very thin behind the edge.
Yes.
How thin is it?
Good point. What I have done is something that's very hard to pick up on camera. I've given it a hollow grind, as any good and proper straight razor should have. So I've given it a hollow ground to where it was almost at a zero.
Okay.
And I just kept creeping up until it would almost feel sharp without being sharpened. And then I just put the final edge on it. So it's thin. It's actually so thin that if you push against it, you will feel the edge deflect a bit and bounce back.
Yeah, that's the way it should be.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, nice. And what material are the liners?
Oh, the liners are
Or
copper.
spacers? Copper.
Yes,
Okay,
that's
nice.
pure copper. I've made all the rivets out of copper.
Okay.
And it has a black G10 backspacer, just to keep to give the entire thing more rigidity.
Okay, nice.
So this has been a fun little side project of mine.
Yeah. So, Peter, if people, do you accept custom orders?
Yes,
I think you
I
already told.
Yes,
Yeah?
I love custom orders.
Yeah.
I like to talk to people about what they expect from a knife, what they want in a knife. I love the discussion of form and function. So whenever people will come to me and they say, I have this specific shape in mind, and they tell me what they want to do with it, and I will actually advise them on certain changes that will benefit what they want to do with it.
Okay.
I want a knife to be good looking, but I don't want the looks of a knife to hinder its performance.
Yeah.
Because the first thing a knife should do is cut.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter what, it has to cut.
If people want to come in touch with you, how can they reach you?
Oh, pretty much everything. I have a Facebook, I have an Instagram, I stream live on Twitch. So they can find me on pretty much any social media site.
Yeah.
When you just search for PS Knives, that's where you'll find me.
And Peter also publishes on Knives from Europe. Also his live streams are viewable on Knives from Europe.
Yes.
We will put a link to Peter's Instagram or Facebook or both in the description.
Yes. Very nice. Thank you.
Okay. Peter, thank you very much. Is there anything else you want to share with the viewers, maybe for the future?
I just love what I do, and I'm currently working on making my own Damascus steel.
Okay.
So that's where the future will be for me. I'm getting as I'm growing more into knife making. I'm getting more equipment, I'm getting more skills, and I will just keep on growing and making what I want to make and making what people would love for themselves.
Well, Peter, thank you very much for having for being our guest in the interview of Facts and Rumours. Thank you very much for joining us. I hope you like this interview. I hope you like the work of Peter. That's it for now. Bye bye.